Hello. How are you, Tanisha?
Hi.
Okay, hold on. We just need to situate this a little bit. Okay, so come on in, everybody. Come on in. All right, there we go. We have a special co-host with us today. So come on in and join us as I get her name up here. Oh, okay. So let's move me over here. Oh, well, maybe not. Hello. Thanks for joining. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Did I spell it? I spelled it wrong. Oh. Okay. Awesome. Come on in. Oh, and where did it go?
It disappeared.
Oh. Okay. I want this one. All right. So we have our special guest here. I know that is like humongous, but I don't know how to make it smaller. It's okay though. Welcome and come on in. Come on in. Come on in. You know, we don't even spend this much time on this. But anyway, Tanisha, thank you so much for being our co-host. If you are wondering where Will is actually taking a personal day, as he said last week, that he's celebrating his 1 year anniversary. So that's exciting, and I'm excited for him and Justin to be celebrating their 1 year anniversary. So he took a personal day, and so I have my friend here with me to be my co-host, and we are going to just jump right into it because, as you know, at about 1:45 we have a special guest, Aaron McCormick, who is going to come on and talk about his book and some other exciting things that he has going on, and you'll get to hear a little bit about his story and things like that. But until then, let's talk a little bit. So how was your weekend? Because
it was good.
I see you got,
I got some cuts.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shanika. Got me looking grown now.
I love it.
Me too. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. It's really cute.
Thank
really
you.
Cute
Shiny look.
Yes, it's cute. I like it. Not because I did it, but because it's cute on you.
She did it.
It's cute on you, and I really do like it.
How was your weekend?
My weekend was actually great. It was busy, but that's okay. I like it to be busy. I like for it to be busy, and I actually had a wedding. So the wedding that I had, like it was like, no, I don't want to say a long time coming, but like, you know how when you're waiting for something and then it like happens, and then it's like, oh my gosh, and it was just beautiful, and it rained a little bit, but it didn't even matter. Like, it didn't even matter that it rained, and she was beautiful. She was a beautiful bride. Everything just came together, and it was just amazing. So I was very excited about that and about the wedding and just having that. And I think when people get married, I think it's because people get so caught up sometimes in not getting married and not seeing the reason why people should get married and just cohabitating without being married. And it's like, why do we need to be married? So I think that when people do make the decision to get married, it's good. It's good. Now, I'm not, I've said it before, I'm not really, I guess maybe I'm biased. Like some days I'm an advocate for marriage and some days I'm not an advocate for marriage,
right.
So, but, I think, but for them, like I'm advocating for their marriage because it was beautiful.
She looked gorgeous.
Yes,
I saw her.
She
looked gorgeous.
And and she's happy and he's happy. So that's, to me, that's the most important thing, is being happy and knowing that you're really happy with the person that you're with. So so that for me was what did it for me. Is like, okay, all right, they're happy. So that's that's what did it for me. But as you're joining, just come on in. And I know you see a different face, but this is my co-host for this evening because, like I said, Will is taking a personal day. Hello, Amanda. Thank you for joining. Please continue to share, like and share, like and share. we are going to get into this talk. And as y'all know that, well, October, it will be here on Thursday. Thursday is October 1st. And, you know, my birthday is in October. My anniversary is like Sunday. And I didn't, like, time has gotten away.
Right.
And I didn't even really realize, like, wow, it's Sunday. And it's Sunday, and I'll be married for 25 years. And that's amazing
That's
to me.
a blessing.
Because I didn't really think that I was going to be married past 6 months. And then 6 months came, and then it was like a year, and it's like, okay, then a year turned into 5, and 5 turned into 10, and 10 turned into 15, and 15 turned into 25.
25.
And here we are. So, you know, that's just amazing in itself for 25 years when I really didn't think that I was going to be married past really about 6 months.
So, with that being said, what advice would you give for someone in the same boat? If they think they're not going to make it, but here you are 25 years later, what are like the key things to keep it pushing to get to that point? In your opinion?
In my opinion, I think that communication, and I'm not just talking the basic. I think the basic. I think in 2020, there's many different types of conversations that need to be had.
Absolutely.
And when you've been married for 25 years, the conversations that you had in 1991 are definitely not going to be. I mean, no, excuse me, not 1991, 1995, 1994, 1996 are not the same conversations that you're going to be having. That you're not going to be having those same conversations in 2020.
Right.
Because you change, the other person changes, situations change, what you like changes, what you don't like changes, things change.
You grow and you mature.
Right. And so those conversations need to be changing quite often, and communication should definitely be opening up more. And there should be a little bit more non-judgmental, because I think that people judge a lot. So I would definitely say less judging and more understanding, and communication not on a basic level. Like, it needs to be a wide array of conversations that need to be had, because I think
have those difficult conversations.
Yes, because and not necessarily that they're always going to be difficult, but it's just understanding and knowing and wanting to know more about the person that you are in this. Just because I just feel like just because you've been in a relationship or in a marriage or whatever for 25 years does not still mean to me, you probably should, but it doesn't mean that you still know everything that you need to know about the person that you're in the marriage or relationship with. People change, and not all the time. All the times when those changes occur, do you share them with somebody, especially if you've tried to share something with that person and they judged you or they made you feel some kind of way, you're a little bit more reluctant to share with that person again, because of how they may have acted before when you try to share something with them. So I just feel like there's a different level and a different type of communication and sharing that you need to have, the deeper or the longer, the longer you've been married. Because things about people change. There's different questions that you should be asking. There's an evaluation. That's what I always say. An evaluation. People get nervous about them. Like, why would you be evaluating your marriage? Because why wouldn't you? If you've been on your job, just because you've been on your job 20, 30 years, you don't start getting an evaluation.
Sure don't.
And a year, and even when you start jobs nowadays, most jobs you're on a 90-day probationary period.
Yep.
And they can fire you at any time if you're not up to par with, what their expectations of you are. So why would you not, in something that you plan to make a lifetime commitment to, that you have made a lifetime commitment to, why would you not evaluate or have an evaluation period or evaluation time, or time that you open up and can actually openly, without any judgment, communicate? Because I think that those sorts of things help people. And when you're not able to open up to the new person that you lay down with at night and you wake up to in the morning, and that you're spending a great deal of time with, especially now during this pandemic, like why could you not openly communicate about anything and all things? And that's important to you?
Absolutely. I totally agree. I totally agree.
Okay. So
totally agree.
I mean, so okay. So what do y'all think? So what do you do? I mean, I always think that, you know, communication is key, but what is key for you? Like in a relationship, what is key for you?
I have two. Compromising and communication.
Compromising.
I
Okay.
think compromising is important. It's give and take, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And it might be, you know, a situation or anything that you may not necessarily agree with or you might want to go along with. But I mean, at some point, sometimes you have to meet in the middle to make it work.
Okay.
You know, you can agree to disagree, respect it, but sometimes you have to give a little, take a little,
right,
and meet in the middle.
Right.
So I definitely think compromise is important. Compromising with, what's the word? Without conditions.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, because people have a tendency to always want to put conditions. And I mean, for me, I realize people aren't the same. People are not going to be the same. People, again, like I said, people change, and people. I'm expecting that. I'm expecting for people to change. Yes, I mean the quality time, and you know, I'm glad that you said that because. People also, like, if you have not had the opportunity to read the book, The 5 Love Languages, there's so many editions of it, or versions, I should say, of it. There's one for singles, there's one for military families, there's one for men. There's one for children, I think, teenagers. I think that you definitely should. I think that you definitely should take the time and read that book because it is going to tell you a lot about yourself and maybe some things that you learning about yourself, and then what your partners, because there's a quiz at the end of it, and what your partners, if you're in a relationship, what your partner's love language is. So if you have not read the book, I highly suggest that you do read the book because it tells you all about the 5 love languages. And Amanda, I'm assuming with you saying quality time, that is probably your love language, which, you know, that, I mean, and that's good. But I think that people also have to understand that with quality time, with compromising, with communicating, there is also, I just lost my train of thought, but I'm going to keep on talking. It's okay. It's all right. That, you know, there's many different things, but I think that those things, quality time, compromising, communicating, are very, very, very important to the to a relationship, and what is going to bring about the best successful relationship, and what you put in and what you get out of it. But I mean, right now, I think for me, it's really not being judged. I'm not by any means the person that I was when I got married. I've grown a lot. I know, like, I don't necessarily know. I think I knew that person. I knew that person then. Right. But I think that not that I have changed, but I have grown. And this person that I have grown into is different from the person at 21. Right. I'm 46 now. When I got married, I was 21. I'm totally different. I wasn't really, I think that I wasn't all that sure of myself. I think I was still trying to learn myself at 21. Right. And then to go from 21 to being at 21 and being a wife, to have to, you know, kind of die to myself and then take care of this person in a home and, you know, things, all that. So I just think that when you are in a situation or a relationship, marriage, whatever, for a long time, that you need to have conversations often and reevaluate those sorts of talks, or things that are happening in your marriage. So, but yeah, so that's where I'm at with that. So that's it. That's it. So the communication, a lot of trips without my spouse sometimes, because I just need a moment.
Time. Absolutely. Yeah. It's important.
Yes. And you know, So I think that those are the things that kind of have made it deployments. I always say that, it's not to be disrespectful, but I think that those deployments saved, it was the separation without a legal separation,
right?
So that they kind of like helped us along the way. So that's that. All right, but I'm excited because, of course, this is my favorite time of the month.
Well,
the time of the year. Let me say this: the favorite time of the year, which is fall. I love fall, and of course, my birthday is in October, so all things fall, pumpkins, everything. And I even went because I did my hair, and then I put like the
tangerine.
Yes, some tangerine, and you may can see like a little bit of the highlighted tangerine in it. I don't know if you still can, but it appears to be a little bit better in person, like in the front. You can see because my hair is already a light brown, and then when I added the tangerine, it just kind of made it orange. But that's what I was feeling. I was feeling that. And so when so I will be turning 47 on my birthday, which is like, whoa. Okay, so I'll be turning 47. But when I turn 40, for my birthday, when I turned 40, I wanted to learn how to striptease, right? I wanted to learn how to striptease. And so I was like, well, how am I going to learn how to striptease? And I want my friends to come, and I want us all to learn how to striptease, okay? Do a striptease. So I searched around or whatever, and I found two young ladies, well, somebody who was friends with these young ladies, and I had them come and teach us how to do a strip dance. And it was beyond my expectations. Like, it was beyond anything and everything that I could have expected, wanted, and everything. But at the end of it all, I learned a lot.
It was fun. I remember it.
I learned a lot. I learned a great deal of things about being seductive and how to do, like, they did a flip and they were trying to teach us how to flip. And I just wasn't like,
I remember the flips.
Yeah, it was just,
it was fun.
But yeah. So yeah, the flip, like, just upside down, and then you're behind in your partner's face, and just, there it is. But what I learned, it was just, I had a really good time, and anybody who was there, I hope y'all still remember that. But that was when I was 40. Now that my birthday is coming up and I'm 47. Well, actually, my question for that is, would you go to a workshop to improve your sex life? Would you take a workshop to improve, like, whether it was to learn how to striptease, whether it was to learn some things that you didn't necessarily know? Like, yes, you may be great in the bedroom or whatever, but would you take like a pole dancing class or a striptease class, or just a class that's going to teach you how to perfect some things, some other things in the
pole dancing? Absolutely. I would do that.
Yeah,
it was like a lot of fun.
Yes, and actually, okay, so I did a pole dancing class, but what was it, like 2 years? 2 years ago. My friend, I went to visit her, and she wanted to take a pole dancing class, and you definitely have to have upper body strength. But I wanted to, like, going up the pole is not it's not something that I wouldn't want to do. I would just want to learn how to be seductive.
I'm trying to do it all.
Oh, see, yeah. But see, I just want to know how to be sensual and seductive. Just let me just be
the basics.
Yeah, just walking around and just being, and maybe come sliding down, and then turn and flip it, like kind of flipping myself over, and then coming back up.
Trying to go upside down, trying to go up and down the pole, side of the pole. All of it.
See, I don't even need that. I just want to be pretty. I just want to walk around the pole. I just want to be pretty on the pole. Like, I don't necessarily go up the pole and swing back down on the pole. And anybody, like, okay, so anybody was like P-Valley fans or whatever, put it up there. If anybody watched P-Valley, like, it was just amazing. I thought the whole show, it was amazing. And it's not, I mean, it does, a lot of it takes place in a strip club, but it is so much more happening than the strip club is. The storyline is just amazing. So if you have not had a chance to watch it. Please watch it. It's really good, a good show. But I just outside of that, would I take a workshop to improve my sex life? I would, because I just want to know what somebody else knows.
Right.
And like, what else? What are people doing? What else? What are some other things that people are doing in
Taking
their
notes.
Oh,
what we got going
no,
on here?
Right. So I would definitely, I definitely would. I definitely would. I mean, because I feel like this. If you could take a workshop to learn how to like a paint class or a crafting class or knitting class or a hair class or a braiding class, like, why would you not do something that's going to improve your
Yeah, I agree.
Your sex, your sex life, and make things better for you and the things that you have going on in your bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's pole dancing, like the
pole dancing. I would, hands down, I'll do the pole dancing. Maybe that class again, the one that you had for your birthday. Okay. The dancing without the pole.
Yes,
that was pretty dope. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, because
that was pretty cool.
It was, and to me, doing a strip tease is very mental.
Yes,
and I think that's why I like it more than a pole, because you can actually, you see, but I just think that, excuse me, I just think that a strip tease dance, just doing is very seductive. And it's very mental.
Yes.
And you just have to, it's just mental. It's mental for you. It's mental for the person that you're doing it for. It's just very mental. And I just think it's a lot of, yes.
I like that.
Yes. Yeah. I do too. But you know what? And I learned those things, but I never, I have to do them when I'm alone. Because then I feel corny.
So Casper's your audience. So Casper's your audience.
Yes, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for anybody to see.
I think honestly, once you do it, once you get into it, I think that just goes away slowly and
yeah, I'm sure.
And once you into it, and then it's just I'm in it now.
Yeah,
I gotta finish it.
I would never just want him to I just happen to look up, and then he has an awkward look on his face, because then I would just be devastated.
You stop now,
I would just be devastated, and so I would just be devastated and be like, okay, never mind. I thought I wanted to, and. No, and I looked at your face, and you weren't into it like I thought you would be into it.
Me, I'm a big goofball, so I really would have to, be in the right mind, because it won't be nothing for me to just bust out laughing or, just seeing the face. So it's like you said, it's a mental thing. You gotta focus and be seductive and.
Yeah, So I don't know. And that's the thing. I just feel like if you're going to be I'm just always feeling wanting to be sexy, and I don't want to do anything that's not going to appear to be that,
right?
Because that's embarrassing all in itself, and that's just embarrassing all in itself, and I just don't. Okay. Sorry. So yeah, so that's where I'm at with that. Okay, save this. Okay, so I was just trying to see if I could figure this out, and I can't. And
big screen.
Yes. Everybody big. Everybody's big. Okay. So what? Anybody else? Okay, I just want. A couple of people comment on. Would you take a class? Would you
to know?
Yes, I want to know. I want to know too. Would you take a class that's going? That's going to improve anything in the bedroom, whether it's strip tease, pole dance, anything. It's wintertime. You should be and as much as we're in the house right now, nobody's going anywhere. it's a lot of things to learn. It
You
is
said it's
a
winter
lot.
time.
You ain't got nothing to do but learn how
To be in
to
the
do,
house.
learn how
Should
to
have
do
been
some of the
learning
stuff. Right.
over the summer. We
Right.
all locked in the house. Summer and spring.
Right. What did you learn? What did you learn how to do?
We should all be pros. Like
Right. What did you learn how to do over the summertime? That's what. Yes. What did y'all learn how to do? But that would be what I would want to just probably to do it again, just so I could become a little bit more comfortable in doing it. Yeah, just probably just so I could be a little bit more comfortable. But like on the active on actual sex, I think I would though. Just like I said, just to know what people know. I mean, just to know what somebody else know. Like if somebody was doing a sex class, like I would want to know.
just to know.
Yeah, like is it something new?
Yeah, you would never know because some
something-
people probably be into some other
like how to do like a utilize like a swing. Like I've seen sex swings.
the ones on the door.
Yes, like but like how, I guess you don't understand. Like how is this?
It's like a
secured?
harness, and it hooks.
Are you laying in it or do you put your legs in it? Like how does it work?
No, like you're. See, look, you got an idea.
Well, if somebody knows, tell me. Like how does it work? How does it
It's
work?
like a harness because they have those, and then they have the ones that they have on the bed too. It hangs from the canopy part.
No.
So you kind of like this.
Oh.
Yeah, like
Oh.
She said, oh. Oh. There's a couple different kinds, yeah.
Oh. Okay. Alrighty. Oh. Hey. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Amanda said it would have to be a private lesson. I get embarrassed easily. Yeah, you know what? I don't necessarily well, okay, and it's funny because when it's things like that, I like to be in a group so that I can hide behind people and just get there. Because when it's one-on-one, it's like you're right here, like
You go ahead.
like I just want to get the lesson. I don't necessarily want you to be, like calling me out and like, okay, here's your turn. And it's like if you're in a room full of other people, then it would never ever be your turn.
It's gonna be your turn.
Because you could just keep moving to the back and moving to the back. I was like, I'm just here for the information, ma'am. I don't want to touch nothing. I don't want to hold nothing. I don't want to I'm just here for the information.
So
And
I'm just taking notes.
just-
Thank you.
yeah. So yeah, that's where I would be with that. I don't know. Some things I can be. I don't mind being the center and people calling me out or whatever, but sometimes I'm just like, okay, it's like you said, I mean, I'm just a little bit too embarrassed. And although when it comes to sex, I'm not really excuse me, I'm not really that embarrassed about it. I'm all about trying to, learn things, but that's just the Scorpio in me. Is just okay, so that's what we doing. Got it. Yeah, okay. So yeah, because like the hardest thing, that's interesting. Like that's just I always wonder. It's like, how do you maneuver in this? Like, is this but anyway, so I would take a class on that. I would take a couple of yeah. Like it's some things that I really want to know. I just really want to know. Like
those are only two things for me.
It's something. Yeah, it's some things that I want to know that I would need somebody to tell me. Like, about certain things. Like I would really need somebody to tell me because I just wouldn't.
I'm curious now. Like
okay. Private dancer.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering why that will not come back up.
Yeah.
But okay. I wanted both of our names to be
wonder
up
if
there.
you
I
can-
don't know. Oh, you know what? Okay, so that is that. So now I guess it's gonna be coming up in another like 15 minutes. So I also want to talk a little bit about relationships, and I have come across more and more people who are in like long distance relationships, and I know that oftentimes people are not too sold on being in long distance relationships because of the distance, and then some people make it work and they meet up with they meet up with the person and sorry y'all, okay, so they meet up with the person halfway, or they go with them, go all the way, whatever, however. How do you feel about long distance relationships?
I'm cool with it. I think just that door of communication has to be open. You have to learn how to build that trust. I mean, it can be hard not being there physically, but you have to have those conversations. You have to have those hard conversations. You have to be open about whatever may be brought up. You can't hide nothing, because it's easier to suspect something's going on if you're not around. You know what I mean? So that communication doesn't have to be open. You both have to have a clear understanding of what the expectation is from the other person. So if you're working towards something, this is what I expect of you, and this is what I expect. It has to be both ways. It can't just be one way.
But how do you know if that person is being truthful or honest, or
I always feel like the truth's going to come out regardless. You know what I mean? The truth is going to come out. So I mean, I personally pay attention to patterns. I pay attention to routines. If something is not in a routine or pattern, I'm going to question it. And if I question it, I want you to answer it, and don't let it be no funny business. You know what I'm saying? But if it keeps happening, then I'm gonna be like, okay, something's going on. Something's not right.
So do you think that the trust, like if you were in the same town or whatever with the person, you were in a relationship and y'all were in the same place, same location, do you think that there's a different type of trust that you would have to have with somebody that you're in the same place with versus somebody that you're dating that's out?
Because if someone's going to do something right or wrong, they're going to do it whether they're there or not, whether it's a long distance relationship or somebody's right there in your bed next to you. You know what I mean? That to me, there's no difference in that. But with the long distance relationship, I feel like you do have to work a little bit harder to maintain that trust, because there's going to be instances where, something might not seem right, but there's necessarily nothing wrong. You know what I mean?
So, okay. So when you're in a long distance relationship, do you, would you give that other person like a key to your place? Or would you ask for a key to that person's place?
It depends on the time, like the time frame. If it's an established relationship, then I don't see a problem with it. If it's
how long into the relationship should you? If anybody has any
I
comments,
wouldn't even give it a time frame. It's just, I guess, just the vibe you get in, how you feeling. It doesn't really have. I don't think it has to be a certain time.
Would you want a key to that person's place over time?
Yeah, if I'm coming through town, let me stop through the house real quick. You know what I mean? It just,
Okay.
But it's not on no, I'm just gonna pop up on you type stuff. It's just, if we're working towards that and I'm in town, if you might not be home, I want to come in town, I want to see you, or even if I'm there for an extended period of time, I might want a key to come and go as I please.
Right.
So.
All right. Okay. Okay. So what do y'all think? Okay. What do y'all think about long distance relationships? Walter, when we first started out, he was here and I was in Kentucky, and it was just, I think it was just hard. I don't even know if I can really even talk about that, because I think that we were just both still young, and I think that we were both like still trying to figure out where we were with it. I think it was different because, when you're in high school and then I'm going off to college and he was in the Navy. I just don't think that we should have really been in a serious relationship, if you will, because I just don't think that either one of us mentally was ready for that. I think that he was fresh in the military, and that's what I think he should have been focusing on. And I was away at college, and I think that's what I should have been focusing on instead of actually committing to be in a serious relationship /
marriage.
Right. Yeah. That ultimately ended. Yes. And I think that, it makes you put away, as they say, childish things. But I think that we both still had childish things in us, even though we were in adult lives, if that makes sense. So sometimes I guess it was easy, and sometimes it wasn't easy. Because I think that we were both looking for different things, and then sometimes we were both looking for each other. So long distance relationships definitely have to require a great deal of many things, and I think that
you have to be on the same page. There's no way around it. You have to be. When it comes to that part, there is no compromising. You have to be on the same page. If you're not on the same page, this is not going to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just not going to work. And like I said, you have to work even harder because they're not physically there with you and they're far away.
Right.
And you have to do any and everything to keep the interest going.
Right.
So that that person stays interested, not wanting to stray away. They're not wanting to, well, this person's not here, so I can't do X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you have to have, that off top. You have to have it.
Okay. Can I just tell you, just like every time I'm looking at you, like your haircut is like
it's so shiny.
It is so freaking pretty. Like it is everything. Like girl,
like girl, look at me.
It is everything. It is like so freaking pretty.
I know, 20 to 30 days overnight.
But it is so freaking pretty.
Thank you. You did a good job. I love it.
It is cute.
I love it.
Nice.
It fits.
I like it. It's so pretty. Okay. That was sidebar, but I just had to because I'm just like my friend is cute with her little haircut. Oh God.
Little haircut. Go ahead with your little cut.
Because this is gonna be gone, and I'm gonna be looking like that. Come a couple of weeks.
Yes.
I'm gonna be, and I don't know why I always do that to myself. I always cut my hair off in the midwinter, like as it's getting cold, and then I'm like, my head is cold, and and I'm just like, why would you do that in the wintertime?
We got beanies, we got hats and scarves.
I know, because I am, and
be cute,
and it's cute, and I waited to get it to this. I
remember.
Went natural so that it could grow out, so that I could get it to this, and then I'm just like,
you see what happened, right?
I'm just
I did
like,
the same thing.
for 6 months.
Every month, you cut my hair again and again and again. Finally, you know what? No, sit down.
Right,
sit down.
Right. So yeah, that haircut was 6 months coming, and I finally was like, this is it. This is it.
I said, no, don't say nothing. I'm cutting it off. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So yeah, but that is cute. I just wanted you to know that
you did great.
It's
I love it.
Thank you. It's really cute. It's really cute. So so yeah, we talked about long distance, and now as we all know that the big thing that's in the news right now is Breonna Taylor and the case of the cop who did not get any time for shooting into her apartment. It was pretty much other people's apartment around her, but no, not anything he was indicted on. No charges brought up against him for anything that happened to her, which was very, I'm very, very saddened from that. And for any of you all who do not know that I am from Louisville, and I love my city, but I'm just very disturbed and distraught about the situation, because it saddens me to think that people are that callous to even have to. I mean, and even it's like, oh, her parents got a settlement for $12 million, but that's nothing for her life and the lives that she would have, or the children, or the the lives that she would have produced. That's nothing. That's nothing. And then just to just be told that your daughter was collateral damage, basically. That's horrible for any parent to have to digest, for any parent to have to hear, and even all the way down to Charles Barkley making the statement that he made, and Shaquille O'Neal agreeing to the things that he said, to what Charles Barkley said. Like, it's disgusting. It's really, really, really disgusting, because if you are not familiar with the area in which they lived, and then the type of person that Kenny Walker, her boyfriend, said that they thought it was the ex-boyfriend that was coming in. You know, we all know, everybody knows, if you ever watched the first 48, how many episodes are shot in Louisville? Like,
right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how many episodes have you watched that took place in Louisville, Kentucky? It's not, you know, it's not, I mean, it's not like, it ain't the best, but it ain't the worst, but it's still,
right.
You know what I'm saying? Right in there. But, and regardless of whatever the case may be, if he had a legal firearm and he fired shots because he heard someone come in, and in the midst of that, it was what they say, 32 shots or whatever that were fired in there, and then she was hit 6 times, and you know, like, that's just ridiculous. And then for it to be that you were to say that, you know,
no accountability,
it's right.
There's no accountability
at all. Like, that's just disgusting on so many levels. Like, it's just totally freaking disgusting. And there's no other way to say it. It's no other way to put it. It's no other way to twist it or turn it. It's horrible. It's really, really horrible. And the young lady, Tamika, I think, when she got on TV and she was talking about the attorney general.
Yeah, I saw her. Yeah,
I mean, she ate him all the way up, and you know, she said what she said, as basically,
she should have.
right. and when I listened to her say what she said, it was all facts. To me, it was all facts, and it should have been said. It needed to be said. And anyone who still doesn't understand at this point why it is so silly to say all lives matter, why you still, if you still do not understand the concept of why that is so ignorant to say, like, I just have no words for you. Like, I just have no words for you at all. None at all. Because it's just, you just can't. You just cannot say all lives matter until you recognize and understand that Black lives have to matter.
For all lives to matter.
Right.
Right.
And when we are being noted as collateral damage, we don't matter. We don't matter. We don't matter. Like, when you could put $12 million and say there's nothing, nothing that's going to really happen, and the felony charges that were brought up, the three charges that were brought up, I guess, on the cop, were the same as it was a class D, I think, felony charges.
That's nothing.
Right. That's
like a couple years.
Yeah, that's like, I mean, nothing.
Like 1 to 3, if that.
Yeah, carries 1 to 3 years,
and that's. Yeah.
That is absolutely nothing. And then and then it was not even for the shots that were fired in her apartment. It was everybody and not only that, but it was for all the white, all of her white neighbors, and not for the Black neighbor who I think was downstairs or upstairs from her. It was not for that person's place. Which,
that's like a double slap,
right?
That you do that, and then, I mean, here's some 12 million, but that's not going to bring your daughter back.
Right?
That's not going to hold anybody accountable. That's just pretty much saying, to me, that's pretty much saying we knew ahead of time what was going to go down. Here's some money, and now we can go ahead and go what we're about to do as far as not holding anybody accountable for what happened. Right. Period.
Right. And it's just disgusting. It's just really, really disgusting. All right, guys. So our guest just popped on. So we're gonna go ahead and move into bringing our guest up. So make sure y'all stay on. If you have any questions for our guest, make sure you type them in the comment box. But I'm going to go ahead and introduce him. Aaron McCormick is an author, entrepreneur, inspirational speaker, and artist whose path to success and fulfillment defies societal norms and expectations in nearly every way. Raised by a single mom on the south side of Chicago, McCormick, since the age of 23, was one of the world's leading technology business transformation sales executives. That was a lot. earning millions and receiving, a mouthful, I should say, millions and receiving numerous awards and distinctions. He has been honored as Best of IBM, an award bestowed upon the top 1% of 400,000 employees, founded several companies and earned an MBA from a top business school with the rare precedent of having no prior undergraduate college degree. McCormick courageously stood up to and escaped the fundamentalist religious cult in which he was raised, resulting in loss of his universe of friends and family. With the combination of deep empathy, wisdom, and self-made success, McCormick ignites the innate ability we all have within to decode our own answers for maximum clarity and self-actualization. Aaron has helped countless people of all backgrounds realize greater fulfillment and success in areas of career, personal power, love and relationships, sales, entrepreneurship, and leadership. Today, he is here to give us insights from his new book, Unbounded: Journey to Your Within. Please help me welcome Aaron McCormick. Hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I am awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. That was like a mouthful, but it was.
You made it. You got through it.
I did. So how are you? So where actually are you located?
I'm in Southern California. So
Okay, awesome. Okay. So how are you and how are things going?
I'm good. I'm well. You know, as I said, I got my popcorn. I'm watching the world change right before our eyes. So, you know, we're all doing the same thing, just watching this play out. Hopefully, we're doing it a little bit more intrinsically grounded as opposed to being tossed about by all the stuff that's triggering us. So, but yeah, I'm doing well.
Awesome. All right, so we want to get right into this, and we want to talk about like what moved you to write the Unbounded: Journey to Your Within.
Man, that's always a loaded question. It was a combination of empathy. Just I've always been an empath, and there's a lot of things about my journey, my personal path that started to become revealed to me in my latter years. As if I'm old. I do have some gray though, but it's like several people were just bringing profound issues and challenges to me, very informally, not like they expected me to resolve, but just kind of people bring stuff up. You know how that goes.
Yes.
But sometimes they would be more personal than they should be for the relationship. That would happen in business. It would happen in new acquaintances. And I guess later I kind of realized there might have been a reason for that. We're all energy before we're anything else. And sometimes we can detect when it's a safe space or something that we're drawing out of the other person to give back to us. Because I really do believe we're ultimately the masters of everything that goes on, even when somebody else seems like they are the perpetrator or they are the giver of something good to us. We are actually manifesting it out of them, and it's kind of our journey. But just a lot of things would come up. It would be like the book summary you mentioned. It'd be very personal, familial stuff, marital stuff, premarital stuff. It might be business related, people that just want to make a lot more money. Sometimes it's just that money. Other times it would be not really aligned and fulfilled in what they're doing for a living. And I would begin asking very introspective questions because I inherently know, and I've learned through my own wild journey, that we have our own answers. It's always us. And we tend to want someone else to tell us. We tend to want the security of being dictated to by, whoever it is, a pastor, an Oprah, a counselor, and it's like all the answers are within us. So I just had this ability to ask really introspective, incisive questions that will bring epiphanies to the person themselves. Like they would be frozen on a topic or feeling victimized or feeling, like I said, they just don't know what to do, feeling like they're damned either way. And then they would get clarity from the questions they would ask themselves, and they would go, oh, okay. And just the huge load comes off of them just in the clarity of the direction. The result hasn't even happened yet. They haven't solved the problem yet, but just getting out of their own way of not knowing what should be the best thing for them. And that was a process of following their inner truth that is usually buried under a bunch of other things that I refer to in the book as binders, which are things that are foreign to your original or actual essence, aura, energy, soul, whatever you want to call it. There's many names for it, but we absorb all these things from, toddlerhood on, infancy on, the minute we enter the world. And these things tend to shape us, everything about us, our biases, our goals, our fears, who and what we are. And therefore that, becomes what we perceive to be the absolute reality. And some of these things we absorb are in alignment. Some of the positive things or the things we're taught, whether it be in church or Bible or from our family, our parents, and many of which are in alignment, but a lot of it isn't, and we don't realize it. And then we wonder why, after we've achieved the things that we thought we wanted, whether it's a relationship or the career or all the above, still something's not quite right. Like, it's like we don't quite feel like we're hitting the target. We don't even know that there should be a target because we haven't been taught that there's a specific target. That's kind of esoteric, and our logical minds tell us, no, everything's fine, but we're still misaligned. So the idea was, rather than do all this onesie twosie sort of help, I thought, why wouldn't I just take some of these very incisive ways of looking at you and your past and your present and your future and all the things that you've experienced and your energy coming out of those experiences and going into them to start to learn your own lessons. So I just figured, if I can help more people by doing it in a very macro way that can, touch many at once, why not do that? So that's why I started writing the book.
Okay. I think you covered everything that was. I think you described me. I think you described other people up here. I think you covered a wide array. I definitely need to get the book because it just sounded like something a book that I definitely need to read. So
all right. So what exactly does it mean to become unbounded?
Become unbounded. Well, everything that we have thought to be true, experienced, all the pain, all the so-called, the perceived successes. It's funny, people often think of your failures as perceived, right? You hear a lot of motivational people say, hey, it's all ways to learn. But the irony is even your successes are perceived, right? So like when I hear you say my bio, and people tend to hear bios or they look at certain, whoever they are in their field, whether it's technology or it's the arts and stuff like that, sports, we tend to put people on a pedestal and we assume that they have things that we don't, or they have a special ordination that they're so fortunate, they're so gifted. We hear that a lot, certain athletes so gifted, or certain whoever, they're so gifted. And the unspoken implication is that you aren't, because you're not naming lights or had this wild bio or whatever the case may be. And it's very clear to me that the only difference between whoever it is that we deeply either admire or feel a sense of or we see that they have a sense of joy or fulfillment, a contagious energy, highly inspirational, whatever it is, the only difference between them and us is the level of clarity of their connection to their heart source, right? And that means when we're little, there's something that animates us before we became the things that we think we are. Let me give you an example. Especially as Black folks, we know this first example because there's two examples I'm gonna give. One is a person that might be raised in a very abusive, alcoholic, berating sort of household. You ain't gonna be nothing, blah, blah, blah. Every negative thing, every fear-based experience for a child possible, whether we know somebody personally or we've heard of it, we know those situations exist. And the person grows up, ironically, to be like hugely empathetic, a strong leader, a nurturing person, a successful, optimistic person. And they were raised in shit. Pardon my French, let's just be real. I mean, just terrible circumstances. Then on the flip side, we've heard of people that were raised with silver spoon, not just with money, but with nuclear family, mom, dad, love, affection, encouragement. You could be anything you want. And the kid grows up to be a delinquent, a murderer, depressed, dark. And you go, well, how is that? Serial killers, then you name it. The point here is whatever that person's essence is belies or defies their physical stimuli. meaning their home environment, the love they were given, they still are in a different direction. The abuse that they were administered, they don't have that anywhere in their body. They're not abusers. So it's like it predates our formation meaning the things that we think outwardly made our personality, but there's an essence before that. And what happens is over time, some of us are more connected to that original spark and therefore a little bit more resistant to the things that are exerting pressure to form you than others. And those are the ones that end up being examples or way showers, so to speak. And that's really all they are. They're not meant to be idolized or oogled. They're simply an example of, now, if I can do that in my case, not if I can be them or be their path or be like them, but whatever the things were that moved them, that gave them joy, that I guess was chafing at them, and so therefore they went a different way. The fact they followed their truth, that's an example for me to do that on my terms, and therefore nobody's better. They're just more aligned. So to be unbounded means the binders that you don't even realize hold you back right now. Like, this is not just esotericism. This is not somebody's opinion. Science says 90% of our thought is subconscious. 90% of what makes you and me, we don't even know what it is. It's just things that have shaped us way back before we knew we were being shaped. And then even as we are adults, we're being shaped, because you walk into a room and humans are naturally very social creatures, and your new peers at work or school or whatever the social setting is are of a certain way, and you take on that way. You walk in the room and they all like, hey, hype, and go. You're going to be like, oh, party time. Hey, first you might look around like, is this safe? Okay, I guess I got to be a little buck wild. And then you might get a situation where everybody's very reserved and you take on. So those are simple examples where we consume a form or a shape around us, but in bigger ways, we become shaped. So to become unbounded just means you become more of what you actually are. And that is across every part of life. So whether it is your relationships, plural, that means your friendships. Let's be real again. We all have friends that we actually don't care for. I mean, we care for them as a human being. Don't get me wrong, right? But we don't get something good out of the company.
Right. Yeah.
It's almost like you addicted to the fact that you don't get something good because you won't sever it or gradually phase away.
Yeah.
Both of you were triggered. The energy is felt on the other side, but you can't break free. That's an example of us being like addicted. Like people are addicted to substances. We're addicted to drama and conflict, which is why we all tend to be watching, if you're watching TV and programming is all about conflict. You know, reality shows all about conflict. News is all negative until the last 1 minute. It's like, so we have conditions that we're stuck on and we wonder why we're not quite balanced. Well, our original self is very different. And so the idea of becoming unbounded is losing the binders. And once you have those, once those are gone, you literally are limitless from the standpoint of you're not bullying yourself into what you can or can't do. And again, I'm an example of this. There are people that have done a whole lot more than me, but just in this little bubble of a story, theoretically, I mean, I'm a single mom. I had a dad that had mental issues that was out of the family. I didn't go to college, excuse me. And I'm in an area or aspect of business that not only is devoid of blacks, a lot of white collar business is devoid of blacks just because of the whole history. And just in the last 40 years or so, what's kind of having the option to have a seat at the table. That's a different story. But then technology is even more devoid. And then the sales side of it, where you're selling to, senior executives that are 50 plus years old, white people that are white men predominantly, that have kids my age. There is no reason that I should have even been in that realm at that age, let alone that successful over people that were, 15 years older with degrees and stuff. And it didn't come from necessarily a conscious knowledge. Like I didn't walk into this field as a technical prodigy genius of business, but I did have a strong connection to my truth. And there was a transparency there. There was a desire to actually help. So there was empathy cross with some of the things that I learned about myself in my youth that I wouldn't deviate from in terms of what I should be doing for a living. And I was closer to the center of something that was my essence. That does not mean that my purpose is to sell technology. That's why there's a book, right? There's other, because I'm actually stepping into more of that. But I guess the point is, when we tend to be very misaligned, and Unbounded makes you limitless because you are more anchored to your actual truth and not all the other things that you've allowed inadvertently to form you.
Okay, so this is because I keep hearing you say that. Why do you think? Because I think that people don't really understand the importance of transparency and the importance of living in your truth. And even in situations or even in marriages that you're in, and perhaps because that's what we were talking about. I'll be married 25 years this in October 4th. And as Tanisha and I were talking earlier, I was telling her that I'm not the same person that I was in 1995 when I got married. I got married at 21. I'll be 47 next month. And I feel like my truth has changed since then, and who I am and all that. But why is it important that people live in their truth and be transparent? And you can't force anybody to accept who you are. But why is it important for you to live in your truth and for your truth to be manifested to other people, I guess?
You think about any sort of conflict, whether it's somebody at work or a boss, a mate, like you mentioned, even best friends, labels that we might give. We call each other best friends and things. Any of those situations, if there's conflict, like real conflict, I don't mean an argument. I mean, in essence, like you can separate there. You can separate in short term, right? If there's a literal temporary conflict, you can take a 2-hour departure. I know you know about this, been married 25 years. Everything will have to be addressed at that moment. You may take your leave, go for a drive, whatever, be alone, cool down. The point is, all external conflict can be separate. You can be separated from. You can't do that from yourself. So like when people think that the worst conflict is elsewhere, externally. In fact, in every situation, we make a unknown or a unbeknownst to us calculation about conflict. So in a conversation, peers or whatever, in a situation at work with a person you're dating or a person you've been married to forever, whenever information comes in or a disposition or an energy comes in, we immediately know. There's a knowingness inside that knows whether there's alignment or not. There's truth within you with that disposition coming at you. But you then make a calculation. The calculation is, all right, so if it's not an alignment is where the calculation happens. It's like if I dissent with this external thing from the schoolyard as kids to much older as adults in various situations, if I dissent and show that I'm misaligned with it, I have an immediate repercussion that's not positive, right? I've got an argument, I've got a lost friendship, I got to realize this job is not right for me, I have to leave it, or I've got to start dating all over again, and I'm 30 something. I'm at an age that my mind and society tells me that I should be married or whatever. So
yes.
So you make this decision. You go, okay, so that's the repercussion if I be honest about what I know to be the case as it aligns with my energy. But if I just kind of push that down a little bit, if I just don't speak my truth, the most I feel in this moment is a prick later on of, maybe I shouldn't have said that. That wasn't true. That's how I really feel. Or I should have spoke up. Or why am I still working this job that doesn't fulfill me, doesn't serve me? So it feels more like, that's just a prick inside. But that's not going without work for a minute or being without your man or your woman, you single because you called it as it really is, or all these different things. So the point is, we end up to varying degrees really far off of the experience that we want. And I keep saying energy a lot because emotions are energy. Emotions are measurable, like literally on a biofeedback machine. They put your head in a probe, like an EKG. It's called a biofeedback machine. And they flash you pictures of your dog or your baby or something that takes your vibe up is love, vibe goes way up. If they show you a picture of something that brings you guilt or shame or fear, vibe goes way down. So we realize, or we notice we're in an experience or in an energy that is not quite what we would like it to be. And it's because at all these levels, we're being untrue to ourselves. So in a 25-year marriage, for example, the stuff still applies in terms of speaking and being, embracing your truth. And because we have intellect and we have a desire to connect with others, it doesn't mean being a prima donna and be like, oh, no, I don't like it. I don't like it. Anything I don't like, I'm just going to say, I'm going to disrupt everything. But you don't have to bully yourself and constantly suppress, because don't bullies tend to suppress? They're like, this is my, shut up. Anytime somebody is insecure of their own purpose or value or something, not anytime, but often that's what bullies are doing. They're suppressing. But that applies to you, to me. Like, we are the biggest bullies because we have a measure of insecurity about our truth. And so we suppress that truth. So we bully it down, and then we're the only ones that end up paying the cost. And ironically, we're actually doing the other side of this service because we're helping them bully themselves too, because energy is always felt on both sides.
Right.
Like, a part of the book, a chapter in the book that's entitled "You Were Not Dumped." Okay, so that's in the love and relationships section of the book, and the point there is it's really impossible to be dumped, and as in blindsided. And you understand more in the chapter, but it's like when we suppress ourselves, we're helping the other person also suppress, because they probably notice things subconsciously and often consciously but they suppress it, that we should be speaking up or raising up on. But since we don't, they can continue living their fakery as well. And so we help keep each other in our own respective boxes, right? Instead of actually, being true.
Okay.
That answer your question a little bit?
Yes, it was all about, definitely of living your truth. And that's just a very interesting concept, just living in your truth, because I think that people are afraid sometimes because of being judged. And so you don't live in your truth, and you just harbor that, and you suppress that, as you said, because they don't want to be judged. Or like I said earlier, like you tried to have a conversation with somebody and the conversation went to the left. So then you decided not to have any other types of conversations with this person because it didn't go well. So then you just continue to suppress things and continue to suppress things. And then, and then one day it just all blows up, and then everybody's looking at you like you're crazy because.
No, I was just gonna say, it's not just a desire to please others. We also suppress because of what our mind has been taught on certain things.
Yes.
You don't realize that teaching is actually a lie when it comes to our real truth. But because society embraces it so strongly, we just keep on going at it, right? Like, I mean, we were babies, we were, toddlers and adolescents. We wanted certain things, toys or whatever it is you asked for or you earned. And you thought, when I get this, I'll be set, I'll be fine. I won't want nothing else, mom, dad, or whoever. And inevitably, the thing will get old. So like we've learned the lesson already that money or the things money can buy don't hold you. Right. They don't hold you. But then we become adults, we forget this lesson, and we hear the rich people say that money won't bring you happiness, and you go, oh, that's what you say. Give me. You don't even figure it out yet. If I had it, I'd be happy though. And it's like, realize you have had it, because to your 9 or 10-year-old mind who didn't want the whole world and riches and stuff, it just wanted this one or two things so badly. And when it got those things, they got old. So if you scale it up to being a 25, 50-year-old person and you go, but I just want that gorgeous multi-million-dollar single family home or these cars, and I've had 100 and something cars. I've had Lambos, everything under the sun. If I just had that, then, or back to relationship, if I just got that man or that woman, same kind of thing. It's always an if. It's an if. Now, what's interesting about that is if you look at the vibrational frequency chart, you just Google it, you'll see a bunch of different images. You can do the image of it. And it's basically it's kind of a colorful thing that shows the emotions and their corresponding measurable energetic frequency. What's ironic is desire is low vibe. It's actually low frequency. It's down there with guilt and shame, and that's not what we've been taught, right? We've been taught, oh, ambitious, oh, desire, and you would think that that's a good thing. And if you ask yourself, well, why is that a lower vibe? And the reason is, think of it this way. Don't we know there are people in third world countries that have nothing in terms of material possessions, but they skipping and happy? This is every race, by the way. People always tend to envision Black or Africa or something like that. But this is like all over the world in various indigenous areas. People that have nothing have a real, genuine joy about life. But you have people in other parts, like here in the United States, we bent out of shape if we make 20K less in 1 year than the previous year, or if we're a woman and we feel like we didn't get promoted, or if we Black, and I've had all kind of issues in corporate America, we being done wrong. We get bent out of shape out of things, when in reality we're actually affluent. You know, we have way more, but it's all in the mind. That's why you can have nothing and be happy, and be filthy rich and be suicidal or on drugs. Or we hear all these things and you go, but wait a minute, that person is beautiful or handsome. They're esteemed by so many. So aren't they loved? Everybody's like, oh, I love me some fill in the blank. They got money. They're the best at what they do. Why were they dark inside? Because maybe what they're doing was manifested as a result of what they felt they're supposed to be doing, and because of what they thought it would give them. And when it doesn't give them it, they like, oh, it's really dark then. So the importance of following the truth is nothing else really matters. Nothing else external matters. What dictates your experience is all within here and here. It's inside of you. You know, that's why some people, you ever noticed throughout life, people can be jealous of something invisible, which is your essence, right? Like, I mean, like you got nothing tangibly over them, but there's something missing inside of them. Yeah. And you got too much joy. You're too happy. You've been through something terrible. You're still okay. Or you know, people talk about haterade. It ain't just something tangible that you got. It's like, man, you got too much happiness going on. You know, they got a problem with that, right? So it's all from within, and that's why it's the most important thing, because everything else you can't control, number one, and number two, it's an untruth. Your real truth is actually inside of you.
Okay. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for all that. It was very insightful. I really appreciate you being a guest. I really appreciate all the information that you gave us. Can you please tell our guests where they can find you, where they can find your book, and to just get more information about you?
Absolutely. So AaronMcCormick.com is the website, or unboundedbook.com. You can contact me, so you can send an email and schedule a no obligation conversation. I speak for corporations. I do one-on-one coaching, like a six-month program, but it's not all constantly hands-on work. It's a few sessions that give you time in between to work through and observe the things that you need to be observing and noticing. So it's not just a bunch of somebody else telling you how to live. I can't coach you, nor would I want to ever coach anybody to live similarly to me. That's the whole point, right? Everybody's trying to follow something external. Is how do you get more in touch with what you should be doing for yourself and within your personal circumstances? So that's always an option. I'm on social media. The Aaron McCormick is the IG. It's the same for Facebook. And how well, if you short on time, I'll let y'all go. But I was going to ask, how are y'all? Because believe it or not, in about 50 interviews, you know how many people, folk of color have interviewed me out of 50?
I'm guessing two.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. So, and as always, we tend to be, we're a minority. We're 12% of the population, right? 60% is white, 12% Black, and all the other minorities are actually majority, as in more than us. So that's the case. So I'm always intrigued just to, at anything that's exotic. And I like to call us exotic, right? Not minority.
that's so funny because I think that we're exotic too. I think
Hey, if you 12%, when other races see us, they, be nice if they were thinking, oh, there's one exotic human over there because we rare. Now, of course, in big cities, we everywhere, right? But I mean, on a national level, we're pretty exotic. But we didn't get to both COVID as well as all the social unrest.
We can talk about it.
All the social unrest. So, how are y'all faring in the COVID era? What's going on with you there?
Well, so things have opened back up. We're in Virginia, so things have opened, and I think that in my area, the kids have gone back to school. I think the lower grades have gone back, but I am still very nervous about going out. So I just really go to work, grocery store, and back home. My daughter is away in school, and I just thought that they would be home by now, but they haven't come home yet. And she is in her senior year, so she definitely wanted to be on campus for that. But I'm still nervous. People are walking around like we're not in the middle of a pandemic, and it just bothers me. But
so let me give you something that may help, okay? Because I'm hearing and I'm seeing your nervousness on it. There are patterns around us that tell us the truth on how we should be in this situation. For example, did you know that in every election year there was a major outbreak of some sort, from SARS, Nile to there's something perfectly timed for every election year. And what I found interesting is that, having been in technology data, I'm used to analyzing empirical data. I'm a bridge of sorts because I'm very much attuned to heart. I'm an empath. I can be very much in touch with my emotions, and that's where I live, but then also hugely analytical. So as I look at the data, it's amazing the amount of fear that's being put out that we're consuming that holds no basis. In Orange County, for example, where I live, there's about 3.2 million people in Orange County. And at the time I looked up the data, it was 2,000 or 3,000 cases, right? So it was like a 0.00, some crazy under 1% kind of deal. And yet millions of people, 3 million to be exact, all their behavior has changed. They're locked in. Parks are roped off. So and it supposedly was to stop the spread, which is biologically is a 2-week situation. Mm-hmm. We're now up to 6 months, but it has to drag up until the goal of an election of some sort. But, outside of political topics, it's like I could look at this and it becomes clear that fear is the objective. And if you think about how, when I talked about that emotional frequency chart, I hope you guys do Google it later and just kind of observe what's there. What are the bottom emotions that are extremely low vibe and what are the ones that are very high vibe? Well, it's interesting that in the bottom 4 or 5, there are 2 big aspects of the paradigm of humanity in the United States, especially that is governed by these things. So, for example, there's guilt, shame, fear, and then there's desire is right above fear. Well, the guilt and shame and fear, we can just be honest about it. Religion controls a lot of those emotions in terms of organized religion. I'm not talking about God. I'm talking about churches, pastors. They mean well and stuff, but the paradigm that has shaped religion is there's some guilt of what you have been doing, right? Or what and some shame, and then the fear of get yourself in alignment or else, get yourself right. And then on the desire aspect, so that's the religious part. And then the next thing that governs our country, if you will, is commerce, marketing, new and improved, the next car, next set of clothes. It's desire. So we have the religious aspect that kind of keeps us in a kind of manipulates behavior a bit by those other vibes, and then the desire is the other one. But like on a COVID, for example, I mean, the data alone would not allow me to become scared. Now I can follow rules if I got to follow rules, sure, but I couldn't even force myself to be concerned at all. And the reason it's easy for me to do that is because I look at the data. But the problem is, the irony is, the data isn't given to the public because they would say, like even today or even right now, they say 200,000 deaths. So that stands out in your mind. Oh my God, 200,000 people. Did you guys know that more people die annually from shitting? I'm being from diarrhea. Diarrhea. Proportionately, globally, 1.6 million people die from diarrhea-related stuff. And if 200,000 people have died to date from COVID, and there's 330 million people in the country, and if you look at the typical flu season and others, measles is up there too. I mean, like a lot of stuff. What they'll never tell you is the 200,000 people that have died is 0.000 whatever percentage of our population. So what that means, American citizens watching the news tonight, is that you have a 99.99991% chance of being perfectly fine. If you looked at it that way, you would no longer be like, oh no, why they're not wearing a mask, or oh, what's going to happen to me? But fear is one of the biggest emotions that people control others with, including our fear of, like we talked about earlier, of being alone, of a job situation, or not being liked. So at a cocktail mixer, we speak a lot or speak less, or we do everything with the fear of not gaining acceptance or approval or being perceived a certain way. So remember that we got to check in here and balance the mind some and just really wonder, is this something we really should be scared about? But anyway, that's a little something on COVID. Now let me shift a little bit. Let's go to the civil unrest. Let's talk about what we see with people at cities. Fortunately, that's not going on here, where cities are being ripped apart. My hometown, Chicago, went through some stuff. Obviously, several other cities have been going through a lot. I don't think Virginia, I don't think I've heard things too bad about y'all's cities.
Okay, so wait, let's back up just a little bit. Let's back up to COVID. And let me just say this. Now, as far, I guess for me, like I just feel like things are just going to be the way that they are. And I still think that there's just some things that I am not going to do just because in the height of it, I just like when the restaurants and things were closed, and then we were kind of forced to cook at home, and we were kind of going back to spending time at home, and I wasn't spending as much money and then I just realized the amount of money that I saved, and that I needed to start really monetizing on my gifts. So that aspect of it, it's like, even though it's like a small percent of me that's nervous, I still had to flip that nervous or negative energy into something positive and figure out how that it was now time. Because at this point in time, I just felt like if you're not implementing something, or if you have not found some type of hustle, if you have not done something that's going to bring you in money, like you've wasted time. I just really feel like the COVID situation was all those days when I said, Lord, can you please stop time? I just need you to stop time. Like, I felt like that was my time that stopped.
I did the opposite.
The wisdom of what you just said, I'm going to break down how tremendously profound it is in ways that you had not realized, but it is because you just talked about it. There's a concept called the dark night of the soul. Have you heard of that term?
I have not.
You have not. Okay. So the dark night of the soul is what every single awakened person, and only they know if they're awakened. I'll explain what awakened means. But whether it's, the gurus of the world, from the Gandhis to people that Oprah will have on Super Soul Sunday, whatever, the dark night of the soul is part of the human journey whereby something happens, a series of events or a single event, on the outside at least, an event that happens in your life that plunges you into such darkness or sustained darkness such that it transforms you on the other side. So, for example, when you watch Goldcast, if you ever see that on Facebook, or it gives a 2 or 3 minute clip of somebody, and you get to know what you didn't know about what brought them where they are. And isn't it always very dark?
Yes.
Okay. So the point here is, you know, as we carry and go through the worst things, and the darker, the better. There's actually a chapter of the book about this thing, the darker, the better, how anxiety serves you, because you can't force darkness. You can't force pain on yourself. You can't make yourself drown in a pool. You can't make yourself feel despair, because if you make it up, yourself knows I'm not really in despair, right? So you don't consciously make it happen. It just happens, but it ultimately serves you. So I've been referring to COVID as a collective dark night of the soul, where it doesn't mean that we all emerge completely awakened. And awakened simply means more connected with your higher self, which in all religions, whether it's Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, all over the world, all throughout history, one thing that's in common with all of them is that we are one with God, source, whatever that name of that God is, and that God itself is energy. So that's universal. So to be awakened, so to speak, is where you are less shaped by the typical human stuff that triggers us and scares us. And how do you end up shaped that way, where you have this, you know, like ubiquitous peace, if you will, and you are in your flow, in your zone, and you're full of joy, which is one of the higher frequencies, by the way, joy, enlightenment, obviously love. How does one get there? Well, how do you get muscles? You lift weights, right? You carry. So the darkness brings you there. So the fact that the whole world has had to, as you mentioned, be very unsure about stuff. They don't know about health. They were obviously triggered and fearful about, could they or their loved ones die? They had career, not just current income, but career. Will my industry stay there? A lot of stuff is changing. And then they had social issues going on with racial divides and this election year, all that's going on. So in almost every category you can think of, there's been a lot of uncertainty and fear, which forces you to go within, right? Because like you mentioned, you can't go shopping, or at least at the beginning. You wasn't taking vacations. You couldn't just distract yourself with your girls or your boys and constantly be stimulated by external stuff coming in, because that's exactly what I was talking about at the beginning, where we start as a pure essence and we gradually begin becoming formed by the things that are socially around us and such. Well, now that that stuff has gone quiet, you're forced to and you face your biggest fears. It's exactly what you said, where I'm so glad to hear you say it. It's like, if one of your biggest fears is money, and you've been forced to go without for a while, or your credit or something, and now you've lived with those challenges, now you got to ask yourself, okay, so with my time, which is the most valuable thing that everyone has, way more valuable than money, because every billionaire gives up all their money for more time if they could, right? So that's one thing that we all completely miss, is that we're all filthy rich and that we all have the same amount of time. So now that you realize, okay, I can survive my worst challenges or worst fears, do I want to go back to something that is gobbling up my time, that I have no heart connection with? I don't enjoy it. It's not part of me whatsoever. And I'm squandering billions of dollars. And you're probably like, well, how am I squandering billions? Well, like I said, billionaires will give up billions for more time, and we all have the same amount of time. So when we're engaged in stuff that is either fearful to us, doesn't serve us, or there's something inside going, man, I really wish I would monetize this thing. I love this craft, or I love working with kids or people or whatever it is, but I'm over here doing this job because of the fear of, but I got to just pay some bills. You haven't learned the lesson that you taught yourself a long time ago, that the external things are illusion, because they provide a temporary sort of something. You don't even know what it is. And then it's gone in terms of, the joy inside. So it's really great to hear you say that about how COVID has served, because a lot of people haven't made that connection yet, but right. More and more people are like, as much as I don't like this, there's a part of me that kind of appreciates this. That's kind of what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a self-reflection for me, because I happened to be one of those people who was not allowed to go to work. But it didn't faze me at all, because when my daughter had to come home, that was the joy for me. And a lot of people were like, okay, these kids are going to be home. Like, that was the ultimate joy for me. When he was like, I'm coming home, and she had to go back up to school, and then she came back. But I was like excited, and even when our governor lifted where we could go back to work, I still didn't go right away, because it's just, I really realized that my career was not intended to be 14 years later. It was intended for me to take on this job to be available for my child and for my husband. And now here we are. And that happened when she was in elementary school, and now she's a senior in college. And I just realized and recognized that was not something that was intended to last that long. And It was like, okay, now it's time for you to pivot. It's time for you to pivot in the things that you basically living in your truth, on the things that you really are wanting to do versus what you had to do for that moment, because now she's an adult and your husband is coming to the end of his career. And so no one is, you're not as bad as it sounds. It's like you're guiding now. You're no longer needed in that capacity. Right. So now it's like, it's time for you to now live in your truth and live and do the things that you suppressed, if you will. Yep. Those years are put on hold, all those years, to make sure that these two people did what they needed to do and help them, and still, but while,
right,
entrepreneur and things like that. So I did a lot of self-reflecting.
Good for you.
Yeah, on that, and that was my conclusion. Like, I cannot allow this, because, and I had to look at it like, God, and I remember all those days when I was running late, and I just needed you to stop time, and so it was like, and this is it. And I feel really bad for the people who have not, that light bulb has not come on, and they did not take advantage of this time to either love on family, to spend time with family, to just learn a little bit more about their children, or whatever the case may be. I just, it just really, they did themselves a disservice. But back to the civil unrest. There were some protests here in a little bit. And then it kind of settled down up in Richmond when my daughter did go back to school. They had a lot going on there. My family lives in Kentucky, actually, the area in which Breonna Taylor, where that whole situation is going on. My family lives there. So of course, there's a lot going on there, and it's the whole situation is sad, and I don't really know how much more the city will be able to take. But the unfortunate thing is, I don't know what else they thought was going to happen. I really just
right. Well, I mean, it's been one after the other, and there's a big part of more fear and even division that is being promoted by how much this stuff is televised and pushed out there. Remember, we're a country of 330 million. And, I would have people saying to me, aren't you teaching your son, that this could happen? Aren't you preparing him? All this kind of thing. And it is so far from my energy. And I had to think about and understand why, and try to help and explain, because, well, for one thing, again, I can't separate from data. It's very hard for me to just become super fearful and angry and have any strong emotions over things that are fake or kind of manipulated. Where, like, the things that are happening to Black folks, especially particularly the violence right now, the discrimination is real. This is just, it's the nature of the history of this country. But the irony on the civil unrest around Blacks being killed easily by cops, nobody knows the actual data unless they actually look it up or tune into certain somewhat independent news stations, particularly Europe. So like BBC, Sky News, other and a couple independent ones here that are not part of the big conglomerates will tell you things that you didn't realize was the case. Like, for example, when I learned last year in 2019, a total, by the way, of 50 some odd people were killed, unarmed people were killed by officers. 50 in the whole country of 330 million. And of the 50, 14 were Blacks. 14, 24 were white. So mind you, unarmed, killed by a cop. And one of the dudes, you can actually you'll see the video of it. His name is Tony Timpa. It's like he's very eerily killed like George Floyd. Knee on the back of him. He's crying for his life. The minute you Google his name, Tony Timpa, you'll be like, your heart will sink some, but it's like, we've seen this before, but we never heard this man's name. Mm-hmm. So I was learning this stuff. I'm like, interesting. So yeah, the ratio is a bit higher for us, mildly. There's 60% white, 12% black, and yet there's only 2 times the number of whites. But even that's crazy. Just that number alone. If people heard 2 times the amount of unarmed blacks, 2 times the amount of unarmed blacks killed happen to be white, the number of whites killed, they would say impossible, no way. And the reason is they never ever showed that story. We can't name one. But every time a stupid cop, an evil cop, too much power, whatever is crazy, a murderer basically, does something to blacks, all everywhere. And that leads us to believe it's happening more to us. Now, are we profiled more? Yes. I mean, might cops be being, dirty and, trying to hook folks up in Chicago, my home, LA, whatever, in deep cities? Possibly. But the narrative that more of us are being killed as if we're being hunted in the streets, here's how it's bringing all kind of crazy division. You got white folks that become more racist inadvertently. I mean, honest, empathetic, non-racist white people are inadvertently made to become racist because they're actually more focused on this injustice, and that makes them kind of want to distance. And here's what I mean. Like, if I've had people say things to me that implicate how hard it must be to be in my shoes. Like they literally think that to be a black man is you hunted in the streets by your own cops. If something goes wrong, you don't know if you can call them. They may even kill you. It's so ridiculous. And when there's 14 people that were killed out of 40 million of us, and when even more whites were killed that way too, to worry about a cop killing my son or to teach him that, hey, cops ain't always good, they could do you harm, that's like me teaching him on a sunny day he can get struck by lightning. That's how low the odds are. 14 people, 30 million. This is the number that you guys can Google. It's the number that I'll send you some links to if you want. The number that were unarmed, documented, killed by cops. And of that 14, the cases of every single one was something a little shaky happening too. Doesn't mean the person is worthy of death by any stretch, but it wasn't like one of us being pulled over harmless and a cop goes, I can get you now. None of that stuff has ever happened. And I'm sitting there going, man, how many of our women are petrified of their men going out because they had this narrative thrown at them so much that a cop can even do them, or if they get pulled over, or who knows. And then our men and boys themselves, look at all this unnecessary negative energy over a complete untruth in terms of this notion that it's that bad, and it really isn't. I'm gonna share with you one thing that actually happened with my wife at a park. And my wife is Brazilian. She looks like she's North American white, but not really. If you look at her hard enough, you can tell anyway, they immigrated here. But the point is, so my kids are mixed. This woman at the park who had been acquainted with my wife a couple of times at the park, she actually says to my wife, she goes, and they both have 4-year-old kids, my son, her son. She goes, I was telling him he's got to be nicer to Colton because he's black. This is what she tells my wife. Now, I'm sitting there like, and I was not there, but my heart goes out to her even, because we talk about living your truth. Now, she goes on to say to my wife, she went to super diverse schools. She's never seen color, and you could tell that that's how she really is. But now she's acting out of character because news and other propaganda has led her to change her true identity and to make her believe that she is somehow racist and that she has to go overboard and be extra nice. And what she doesn't realize is she's actually teaching her son to be a racist, because racist means that the main criteria by which you interact or regard a person is based upon their color, right? So now this little 4-year-old he says to himself naturally, I got to be nicer to Colton because he's Black. Why do I got to be nicer? Well, because Colton has a harder life. Why does he have a harder life? Mom already said the reason, because he's Black. So if Black is harder experience than white, and innately white is superior, right? So right away, you've taught condescension, and you've taught him to, inside of his mind, be superior. So when he grows up, he don't want his son or daughter to get with or be too close to something that is going to be challenged, maybe can get shot, or, hey, you can be friends with them, but don't get too close because life is hard for them. So even when people are not racist at all, they mean well. You're separating the energy because you're creating this false illusion that is super duper bad. And I'm sitting there going, I told my wife, I said, what's amazing is she has no idea that this 4-year-old boy, he's been to 8 countries. He's 4 years old. He's gotten in and out of Lamborghinis and stuff. And not that shit matters, but the point is you've made this, you've already prejudged, thinking that I have a tough life. And even my family and friends and others that have not done those physical things, the things that we deem successful, that's always in the mind anyway, they also are super happy, right? I mean, we're generally a happy people, but we become a dark people energetically sometimes by the stuff that's put out there that makes us feel worse. Then we make it our reality and we assume it's super prevalent. So then we feel worse about ourselves. And then other races are like, ooh, that's tough on them. Ooh, well, I feel so sorry. Now we're being pitied. And the irony about us as a people is we have a lot of pride. We're a happy people naturally. And yet we end up getting huge amounts of pity. So it's like, I don't want the pity. I want to be valued on my merit. I don't want to just, like those of us that are strongly and empowered, we don't want pity. We want merit and we want equality.
Right.
But to go so far it becomes pity. Now it's just patronizing. And now it's like, that's not serving either. So I thought about that because it's not just us that can get ultra dark from all this external things that can tell you an untruth about you, because abundance is within. And I think, I know the reason I was very successful, despite being in I was not raised in a bubble. I was raised food stamps, free lunch line, gangs all in my school. I was like a bridge. I was cool with the gangbangers. I was cool with the athletes. I couldn't be on a team because I was in that high control religious cult, but I was mega athletic. I was cool with the nerds, and I was always looking out for somebody that was being ostracized or kind of, bullied or, left on the fringe. I wanted everybody to kind of be happy and stuff like that. But it's like, I didn't believe that I had a limitation on me. I was aware I was Black because I experienced forms of racism, just like anybody who's obese has experienced, discrimination or people being mean over their obesity. Any woman has experienced sexism. Any immigrant has experienced. So we've all experienced it, and the Black thing is more prevalent because it's the biggest wound, right, of our country. But I just thought that was ironic. So as a Black platform, I wanted to talk about this because we sometimes get into our own box and we get more triggered and we don't realize we're being played or instigated to the point where we take on the energy of the message coming out more than we were before. Like many of us were happy doing our jobs, being optimistic, knowing we are our own limitation, but we still know there's issues here and there, but ultimately we've been good. But in the last 6 months, where it's like Black person after Black person being killed and done wrong and stuff, and we're sitting there thinking, man, things have gone backwards. And in reality, no, they've played up more of the stories, but the numbers every year are always super duper tiny. But just think about why they only want to show us. It's because we got a wound. If they showed a bunch of whites being killed unarmed, maybe we would go, oh, wow, oh, damn, it would cool our heads a little bit. We'd be a little bit less divided on that topic or less combative, and less drama means there's less civil unrest, and there are certain people that thrive on civil unrest and they prefer it, and it's fake altruism that's usually played against us. I mean, do y'all see these things? Is this like?
I mean, I hear you, but I also feel like this. I also feel that Okay, and I always say that, you know, maybe, I mean, obviously on Facebook and Instagram, things like that, a great deal of my friends that I follow are Black. So quite naturally, things that are going to come down my feed, you know, a lot of things they're going to be in the Black community, obviously, because I follow a great deal of Black people, you know, so I would see that. And, you know, I think that if had a great deal of my friends were white or whatever, that I would see more things that were in relation to the white community. So, you know, that's that. Secondly, I would want to say that, yes, some things may be heightened more than others, and these things are happening, but it still doesn't make it okay. It still doesn't make having a no-knock warrant and shooting into someone's house and then a person being killed, it still doesn't make it okay. So even with that, I still think that people need to protest against that. I still think that there are things that people need to protest against. And I'm not saying rioting, but I still think that people need to have a voice, because even with, and I'm kind of like going, because all of this is coming to my mind. So just bear with me. So it's going to be a sidebar. I'm going to come back, but even down to the Colin Kaepernicks of kneeling, and people would always say, oh, him kneeling and other people kneeling and all these people kneeling is a disrespect to the military. And for me, it was never a disrespect for the military, because I feel like the military people, Black people, or people, just people, period, who are serving their country and do not have the ability to kneel down or to speak against their boss or whatever. So to me, that's the Colin Kaepernicks. That's who they're kneeling for. The people who can't come up against the person that they work for, or the things that they are actually experiencing. They can't speak for those things. So I never had looked at it like, oh, okay, well, why is he kneeling? Well, he's kneeling and he's speaking up for the people who can't. So right. When I'm sitting here, or you're sitting here, and you're saying, you have the platform to say, okay, well, if you're on your job, if you've been on your job for 20 years, you're not going to go and speak bad about your boss. Well, why are you not going to speak bad about your boss? Because the job that you're on is taking care of your family. So even if you don't like your boss, you're not going to speak out against your boss. Right. But if I have a platform to say this particular company and this person sucks, I'm speaking up for you.
Oh, without question. They mean well. You have to use your voice, and you got to get things that are important to you out. That's part of becoming unbounded. True enough. But here's something interesting. Like, remember when OJ situation was going down, and how once we knew a lot of the data, everybody kind of knew. They were like, I think he's guilty. Like, most Blacks I spoke to was like, knew, but they were happy when he was off, right? If the Breonna Taylor situation happened, which is so jacked up, it's most jacked up because she was not even the bad guy, so to speak. She's the girlfriend, you know, in the wrong place, wrong time. Not that it's good for the bad guy either to just die like that, but you get my point. She's even more
wrong time, wrong. She was where she was supposed to be, and the situation. Based on the situation, based on the data that's coming out, based on things that are being released, it was not done appropriately, and now she's considered collateral damage, which is horrible. And
yeah, but hold on a second. I don't know about you, but if you were my wife or sister or mother, and you were on that porch, I don't care what race it was, shot comes through the door, I hope to God you unload your cartridge the other way. Let's pause on that for a minute. If you're on a porch and a shot comes out that house, more shots come in the blink of a second of triggers being pulled and deadly forces coming at you. You are not, whether you should have been there or not, or you should, I don't know about the knock stuff. That once I learned that shots were fired, and I'm imagining my loved one on the porch, myself, I'm pulling and I'm firing back because I have to immobilize whatever's on the other side. It's not like
okay, so you're saying on the porch as the cop, inside as the gentleman, her boyfriend, because
it's my understanding that shots were fired out of the house, and they fired through doors. They didn't look her in the face. They didn't see an innocent bystander and start unloading. My understanding is
they busted. The reason why he shot, first of all, is because he heard someone coming through the door. That's why he shot. So he heard them coming through the door. That's why he shot his gun. And in his story, he said that he thought that it was a person that they were actually down the street arresting. So they were already arresting the gentleman that they were actually looking for down the street at another residence. So therefore, so he had illegal. It was illegal. He had it legally. He had the gun legally, and he had a right to protect his home.
Yes, and that may be true. And so what I'm saying, when I call it unfortunate,
and the charges that were brought up against the cop were not even for anything that happened in her apartment. They brought up charges for 3 residents around her that were all white. And the black resident who lived upstairs and next door, it was no, and even though gunshots went through that person's apartment, there were no charges for that apartment. But for the 3 residents, the other residents who were white, charges were brought up against him for those. Not for her apartment, not for the other black residents who lived.
And the reason I think was based upon what? It's the whole the no-knock warrant thing, right? That's why they got charged.
Yeah. So if you claim, and there you have 12 people, and you only interviewed one of those people out of the 12 people who said, I heard them announce themselves, and the other 12 people you didn't even interview. You only interviewed the one person who initially said, I did not hear them announce themselves, and then went back and recanted that and then said, I did hear them announce themselves. Why would you announce yourself on a no-knock warrant to begin with?
Why would you announce yourself on a no-knock warrant?
Yes.
So you do understand, though, once the shot was fired is where that person will start. So if the infrastructure,
because they went in, because the shot.
I got that part. No, I definitely got that part. So if the infrastructure, which I think they're changing this, right? That they're trying to get rid of no-knock warrants. So if I or you or whoever our loved one is, the lowly cop, regardless of what we may think their intentions were, if they're out going to execute a no-knock warrant situation, and when I call it unfortunate, I'm saying for whatever caused them to be scared enough to shoot, the automatic reaction of that person that I love had better be immobilize what's on the other side before the next bullet hits you. I want them to do that. Now, what caused them to be in that situation, the no-knock, all this stuff they got to undo, I'm sure that's true. I think they've already undid it or in the process. That's why I say it's unfortunate. But to actually charge my loved one, if it's one of you guys, with murder because you're following the infrastructure arrangement that allows me to not come or whatever, or for me to, or even if I'm being an ass and I'm going, I think this guy is bad. I heard some bad. I think we need to go save somebody or whatever they thought they were doing. I don't even know. I don't even go super deep. But if they're forcing their way in, and for somebody, but cops don't come in blasting guns. You don't fire back at cops. And if it's a regular intruder, you still don't use deadly force. If somebody's breaking into my house, I don't just start unloading through a door. That's impossible.
Okay. First of all, so you would have to understand. So this story is not going to, because I will be explaining the story to you, but you would have to understand the area in which they lived in, number one. And there's other aspects to this story as far as, gentrification, things like that. So the area in which they lived in, where this all took place is not, and even no matter where even if you live in the suburbs, if somebody busted through my door and I'm legally, I am legally able to carry a gun, I'm not waiting for you to, I'm not waiting for you to get upstairs. I'm not waiting for you to get in my face. I'm not waiting for you to do all this, because I don't know what your intentions are. And because we don't know, I don't know, we don't know, you don't know, nobody knows the capabilities of the boyfriend, in which he thought, the gentleman who was in the home, he thought it was the ex-boyfriend, or whatever. That's what he said. we don't know the capabilities of that person, and if that's what he thought, or if he already had an altercation with this person, and whatever, if words had taken place, we don't know. I don't know all that. I'm not here to speak on all that, but
Right.
I just feel like if you have the right, you know, to carry a gun, you have a right to defend your home. I don't think that it should be based on, you know, who you are, where you live, it should all be questioned. I don't think any of that should be.
But you know, here's the thing that's so jacked. If I had my family next to me and someone's coming through my house, I promise you, I can't start unloading without seeing a gun or seeing potential. It don't mean come all the way up in my face, because the minute I shoot, they can also start returning fire, and I got other precious life around me. So you're supposed to be slower on the trigger, because that's deadly force, and you don't have to be pretty close. So think about this. I'm sitting here locked on the door. For them to get through the door, gather their vision, lock onto me, and shoot me before I see their image and go, oh, you got a gun, or oh, you mean pop, pop, pop. I've already got you. So I have an advantage. There's no reason. This is me personally. I'm not judging the guy that did this. All I'm saying is it's jacked up, because once you start firing through the door, I expect you, my wife, my mother, my sister, whoever is that cop, to unload through that door. Not just one, because I'm not trying to have you die, and you got to defend yourself against deadly force. So whenever you got deadly force, you are super slow about it, because there ain't no reversal, and more deadly force can come back. So because if it's a rogue dude, a jealous boyfriend, he coming through, it's like, okay, MF, the minute you come through, there's some lead waiting. You come through, and now he's standing there. He can't shoot you before you shoot him, because you got you right there on the door. You're going to win every time. But to do it blindly, whether it's nervousness, again, I'm not knocking the dude for doing that. All I'm saying is it's unfortunate, because they had no choice once in the situation. Bullet comes, I got to shoot back, in the story. And
Perhaps so. I'm not here to argue that. I think that there's many variables. There's so many things that have come out about the situation, things that even the ex-boyfriend, even they tried to get him to say that Breonna Taylor had, it's so many different variables to this story and many other stories.
right.
And I'm not here to argue the points of any of those stories. I see the facts I see the facts. I hear the facts like everybody does. It's
Right.
it's on the news and all that. I have my opinion. You have yours. Other people have theirs. And the unfortunate thing is, racism, whether it's I should be nice to Black people because, that's what I'm seeing on the news, or whether, which I think is still an ignorant vice, but whatever, because I feel like you need to
They're a human. It has nothing to do with, yeah.
I feel like you still need to do, it's just like saying, just because I know, people are on drugs, or a lot of people that I know, but when you hear certain drugs, you just kind of associate those drugs with white people, whatever the case may be. I don't assume that all white people are on their drug. That's not, I don't assume that.
Right.
So I just think it's a matter of doing your research, and just teaching yourself and just getting things, and not necessarily being looking at the news and taking everything for face value. You need to there's things that you need to research about different things, and not just because that's something that you see on TV doesn't mean that it's right, or that it's real, or that all Black people act this way. And it doesn't mean that I'm the spokesperson for all Black people. Like,
Right.
it's just, you just have to familiarize yourself with things, no matter what your color is, what your race is, or whatever. And to me, that's just not, I don't know. I probably would have been a little offended, because I was just like, that's just, no, you treat him like he's a child. He's like, he's
Right.
He's a 4-year-old child that's out here playing with your son. And it's no reason for us to get into that, because they're boys playing, and that's all it needs to be.
And the reason my heart went out to her is because she honestly thought she was paying a good comment to my wife, because the impression some people get from the media stuff is that we want that, is that we prefer for you to bend over backwards for all these decades or centuries of mistreatment or whatever it's been. Now you need to overly wear shirts to say I'm guilty, I'm sorry, and kneel down, and all these different extremisms. And some people are stuck not knowing how to go with it. So they put on this fake lip service and they don't realize, just be you. It's like, look, if you've had racist issues and you don't want to be that way no more, start changing
that way.
Yeah, if you've never been that way, don't let something else tell you, oh no, you actually were. You better jump through some extra hoops. Otherwise, you're actually, and so, you know, that whole inauthenticity thing starts to happen. And on our side, you know, when I said that with 50 people, total people, here's where I think all this is smoke and mirrors. When 50 total people out of 330 million are killed unarmed, that number is so small that technically shouldn't even be in the top 5 or 10 broken issues of the country. Now, before we get triggered on that, of course it's terrible, or Breonna, or any, the value of a life is huge. But when we think about the huge, like just from as a result of this unrest, the numbers of blacks, innocent blacks, not to mention business owners that have been killed, already surpasses the average killed annually unarmed blacks by cops. So more than 14 people, innocent blacks, have been killed as a result of these deliberate protests and businesses destroyed, communities. There's countless videos of old black, old black folks, men, women, business owners crying, mothers like, I can't shop in my store in my neighborhood because we don't tour. So like the atrocity over such a tiny percentage. And what I'm saying is, while that is a problem, when you got 50 out of 350 million, we'll never be able to stop a rogue murderer. Now, we do need reform in terms of making it a fair process for how we both prosecute. Like, for example, we all know about the whole 3-strike rule that disproportionately hooks us up because of our history and because of the social level and because of what happened in the 60s when they broke up our nuclear families. And now most of us are on aid, or not most, but it might be actually most. The point is, when that reversal has happened, now we're doing more of the menial crimes, the simple drugs and this and that and the other, trying to find other ways to make a living. And we in our communities and stuff, to put that young brother in jail for life over some little substance he had is so jacked up. When whites or others, what's going to be their crime? How easy is it to be doing a misdemeanor? Something like a robbery and things like that. Those are much more rare than all the systemic drug trade and stuff that's happening. So the point is, we got to balance the justice system in terms of targeting blacks and stuff. But this notion that for us to be all up in arms over the actual murders, I guess my point is, all races murdered by cops unarmed is way too small of a top priority. The top priorities are the very systemic things that have put us in the position where we doing more crime in the first place. Can you imagine if these corporations gave the same $1 billion, like think of all these big companies that have given 100 million here, blah, 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 to BLM. If they've been given anywhere near, and what they're trying to resolve based upon the formation of BLM, and not even to get into some of the scandalous things they've admitted that they've now taken down off the site about what's really behind it, but even the basis was black life. So too many cops killing our people for no reason. So you got $1 billion thrown at something that it actually can never be fixed with money. Meaning if there's 50 cops or 14 situations where a stupid cop either panics or he's like, I hate me some N-word. If I can do it easily, I'm gonna. No amount of money can make sure that dude don't exist. He's still going to be. But what if we took that same $1 billion and we deliberately said, let's do things that actually takes away the disproportionate amount of crime being done on each other as well as to others or whoever, because they're in this systemic situation. Nope. Instead, it goes toward this big macro level cause that happens to be funded by a white billionaire dude that has a history of instigating stuff just to create more stuff. And it's like, that's the part that gets to me. And then I see us being overly saddened and triggered and angered, not so much by the event that happens, because all those events are sad, but by this notion that is happening hugely prolifically, and the actual data says it's not. But then they get their results out of us, which is where we snap off, we go off. Some of the results we give, such as trying to speak up and trying to get equal justice in terms of, like I talked about, the whole 3-strike rule. That's Trump already undid that or whatever. But it's like some of it is them playing us to end up in situations that exacerbates the problem. It actually does. And it's cloaked under this notion of we're now all of a sudden empathetic. Yeah, all these big corporations, we all of a sudden now are automatically empathic, and we really just want to do well. But when I see these politicians with the fake African garb, bending down and kneeling and stuff, I like the energy inside me wants to kind of regurgitate. Because I'm like, that. Come on now, is that? So I feel like we're kind of being puppeteered and played a bit, even as we try to stand up for ourselves. They're kind of doing the switcheroo, if you will, on what our real issue is. And if I could be in Chicago somehow and helping real issues that is knocking us off like crazy, that is like bullets flying and killing 50, 60 per weekend. I'm hearing from my relatives still in Chicago. And yet we're talking about the 14, that a bogus country or redneck or whatever you want to call it. I don't mean to be racist, but you get my point. Like a rogue cop that's killing us. We doing more on our own, and they're helping it, and then they put up an agenda that implicates they're helping, but in reality is doing worse. So I mean, we could obviously talk forever on that, but I want us to be a lot more intrinsically anchored and not be so overly emotionally stoked up. It kind of reminds me of like when we were on the playground. And dudes would antagonize each other. We were all to say, I didn't do this, but I was a part of it, meaning it would be said to me, if somebody would say something about my mom, you remember these days, right? Oh, he just said about your mom. Oh, like they want you to fight because of that. And I was one of and like every other boy knows what I knew, which is your mom wasn't getting by his daddy or him last night or with his blanket or all the vulgar stuff they say. Yo, that's why your mama blah, blah, blah. That wasn't the case. And it shouldn't matter. But since you're being instigated that they can't say that, next thing you know, you are super acting out. And now but it wasn't true. So like, I would be instigated that way. And I'd be sitting there going inside, what he just said about my mom has absolutely zero effect on me. Because he's never met her, don't know her, it's untrue, and it completely rolled off my back.
Yes, but on the flip side of it, and then we're gonna stop here. But on the flip side of that, some people don't have a voice to speak, and some people, and even though that those things are not true, and that's boys on a playground talking, and tomorrow you'll be friends, but people are losing their lives, and they're people aren't able to speak up, and not only not only losing lives, but as you said, the injustices that are happening in the penal system. There's things that are happening that is not just about people protesting, about people losing their lives, physically losing their lives, as in deaths, but losing their lives and being sentenced to more time and your counterpart is not, you're getting more time than the white person, and for the same crime. So it's more than just the deaths, and and I'm not going to ever say, tone down your hypeness, tone down your protesting, tone down your whatever it is, because those voices speak for the many voices who cannot speak and cannot speak for themselves, who are no one.
What I'm saying to you is I'm not saying don't speak your piece. What I'm saying is don't defend my mom. I'm not gonna in that silly example, I'm not gonna agree that happened and that you did that. I know it hasn't. My point is, when we're stoked over something and we're deliberately antagonized when the data doesn't support it, we don't have the ability to look at the data and, for example, know, because the outside influences, just like we talked about COVID. It's like, look, the actual numbers, not only of people that get it, but the death rate is so minuscule that there's no reason that everyone should be in this state. Most people realize this is politicized. Other parts of the world realize that it's politicized. And so how much you pull it into here where it really is harming you, that's the part that we have our personal control over. So are bad things happening? Absolutely. Should we be okay with them? Nope. But when they over amplify it and they don't show the rest of what's really happening, and all, like every Black person that hears the real stats should have a pausing, reflective moment that goes, well, damn, I didn't know that. And it is interesting that I can name 3, 4, 5, 10 Black names right off the top, but I can't name a single. And you tell me every year more whites are killed unjustly unarmed, and I can't name one, but I can name this many. I wonder why they don't show the other side. Just your own critical thinking. So the whole point there is things are not as we all think. That's where critical thinking comes in. So I'm not trying to say we should be okay. We should just lay down and oh, hell no. I wrote a book about being unbounded. I'm saying, but be controlled here a little bit and do your own critical thinking. You even said that. Just don't, and you said also don't be overly swayed by the news media. Last thing I want to say, because I know you got to run, and I got to. My family actually tried to come in, and I'm like, no, because they want to come. I'm like, I'm in the living space here. I do want to say this is, having been raised in that high control religious cult, and basically it's cult meaning if you leave, several famous families have been in that. Jackson 5, the Serena Williams and her sister, the Wayans family, Selena, the crossover Latin singer. So most people may know which one that is. And it's just fundamental, meaning that the Bible is very, very literally. If you follow Christ, technically that would mean you don't do Christmas and all these holidays, just like this particular religion, all that. Anyway, the point is, I've never voted. I left at 39 years old. Never had a horse in the race. Never was overly into the parties. Because again, if you go fundamentally by the Bible, Jesus could have been the best king in the world, yet he chose to just be a lowly carpenter. He was perfect. Could have been the best judge, best attorney, best whatever. So the premise that this religion goes on is don't care about none of this external stuff because just focus on God's kingdom. Rightly or wrongly, that's the bottom line. So here's the deal. When I come out, I've got a unique disposition of zero bias. Like I haven't been Democrat all my life, Republican all my life. I've never had a horse, never had an argument, never cared, never literally voted. So as I take in the first election, I came out in 15 is when I exited this religion and became free, so to speak, to do what I want, vote if I want, grow a beard if I want, tattoos if I want, that kind of thing. This is how controlling it was. And as I looked, I go, so this is interesting. I've always internally kind of thought Democrat was, the good guys because they're taking care of the people, like Peter Pan, rob from the rich, give to the poor. And Republicans are, I see all a bunch of white faces. They all got money and this and that and the other. So it seems like that's just kind of how it is. And I wasn't even in the races voting, didn't care, didn't follow policies, didn't follow elections other than the results. And that's still what was kind of something I kind of figured. Then somebody sent me a link that said, figure out which party you're biased to or what you stand for. And you just go down the list. And I learned if I were voting, by the way, I still haven't voted yet. If I were to vote, my values are Republican. And I was like, huh. And then I learned, of course, the history of slavery and that it's the Republican Party that was freeing the slaves and all this other stuff, leading it on up to now. And then when Trump was getting elected, or when they were going through that process, a friend of mine, Black friend, professional girl, she's like in her 30s, doing really good in her career. She came over in tears, about Hillary's about to lose, or she already lost. I forgot what it was. Remember, I had no horse in the race at the time, and I'm like, what's going on? And she talked about how Trump is racist and all these different things, and I was like, huh, is that? So I started Googling. I think the thing she mentioned was that his strategic advisor was a racist, Breitbart or some stuff like that. I don't even remember. It was Breitbart. And I looked and I go, that's interesting. Because when I looked at the source without the triggers, I didn't see racism at all in that context. And when I asked her to show me, she mentioned, she goes, here, right on the website, it says, because she was saying that they were both racist and sexist, that Trump and this guy that was his advisor or whatever. And I was getting concerned because I'm like, I don't follow this, but man, if our president is straight up racist, then that could be an issue. And if it's a strategic advisor, so I look it up, and it said something like, it's not so much, this was some headline that she found that she pointed to me to say, see, it's sexist, right? She goes, it's not so much that, I mean, the article said, it's not so much that sexism is happening to women, so much as it is that they're bad interviewers, or something like this, some garbage like this is said. And I said to her, like, I immediately go, triggering, yes, but for any minority, any immigrant, any woman, that any person that doesn't look like the status quo, I bet you scientifically they interview not quite as typically good because they're more affected. They probably can do the job better, who knows? But you know that when women go into executive positions, they're worried if I'm too soft, they're going to say, oh, you know, it's because she's too emotional or whatever. If I'm too assertive, they're going to be like, oh, she's a B. Black folks, as a man, professional, being in all levels of business, you're always wondering, are they going to assume when I assert? I would watch the white dudes be able to assert and say things. I'm like, man, if I said that, they label me so quick, like you know, blah, blah, blah. So the point is, I'm like, the truth of that was that it may be true that women and minorities and others aren't as comfortable in their skin when they're trying to get the job. Data would probably prove that if they actually did a scientific analysis, because they're more concerned and you know, putting their best foot forward or whatever. But the point of all that was this: when I then looked at all the things that have happened since the presidency, and I learned that maybe you've heard these things, maybe you haven't, but like, I'm amazed at how universally against Trump blacks are. And this dude was in pop culture the coolest old white man ever, in rap videos, pumping fists with jokers on the sidewalk of New York. He was just this, he's in rap songs, not just in the video. I mean, he was always that way. And then on top of that, when I learned that he grandfathered huge funding to historically black colleges, which has never been done, and when I learned that he undid the crime bill, which has got all the women that are missing, the shortage of black men that our sisters complain about so much, a lot of it is that, because it's not the dudes that are put away, it's the fatherless boys that come up and are even worse because moms can't control these jokers. My wife has a hard time with my 4-year-old when I'm not there. We all know what they got going on. So this is systemically happening. This dude reversed that. And then when I learned about the unemployment level, which is off the charts, I'm sitting there going, okay, well, shoot. Isn't it interesting that we unilaterally are leaning one way, but on data is something different? Does he say things that I'll be like, what the hell did you just say? Do he be saying stuff? I'll be like, man, where is your emotional intelligence? Like, don't you realize that could come off, that could be perceived? But the actual energy of the dude, super merit-based. Meaning, if you're a chick and you got game, way before, when you look at some videos of him back in the day, you know how he esteems just merit. So I thought that's interesting. That again, we let the data come in. We don't research the data. We let the narrative, I should say, come in. And then here's something else that hit me kind of as a clean slate with no bias. I have never seen a famous person be Republican. Again, mind you, if I'm triggering y'all, just try to bear with me. I can't even engage in this conversation with you because I cannot, not because of this platform, but just because of my personal, I cannot engage in any political conversation. We can talk offline. But I just thought it was crazy that everything is only one way. Remember, when you never voted your whole life, you don't all of a sudden get all, thinking that, altruistic, that, or rosy-eyed, yes, I'm gonna let my vote be cast. I still probably ain't gonna vote. It's like, because I've never felt that what happens in that White House really controls my personal experience. And I've also never felt that the actual president really controls anything. I don't care who it is. He doesn't really control the show. That's what I personally believe at the end of the day. But I just watched all this and I go, man, it's interesting how mega divided we are. And yet I see this data. And then I also observe how nobody is ever publicly a Republican. That's like, I'm like, well, who the hell are the Republicans then? And I'm like, how can an entire industry of entertainment and big business be 99% one party when I thought it's two parties and it's usually 50-50 or 47-6 or whatever, they're close, and yet it's all one way. So then I'm like, okay, so there's a bunch of other stuff that I've also, connected some dots on that kind of told me how a lot of manipulation is happening. But I'll leave it at this though, which is a lot more positive and outside of political parties, because I'm not political. And last thing I want to do is let this thing be focused as if I'm trying to push Trump or promote or be political. Here's what I know. What I know is that humankind is in a bit of a dark night of the soul. It's collectively going through some stuff that is ultimately going to raise its vibration, which is going to help a lot of the stuff we've already been talking about in the long term. So what happens on the other side of this, I believe, is absolutely going to serve us. And if you want something that's even more juicy, that's data that's kind of mind blowing, is that we usually don't come across, is the notion of the fact that we're entering a new age, a physical age that has to do with the stars. And this is science. This is not any esoteric stuff. This is the stars, that we were once pointed at one age, meaning one grouping of stars for 2,000 years. The physical Earth points at a constellation for 2,000 years until it eventually is pointed at the next constellation. So if we think astrology is just about your horoscope and stuff like that, is way bigger than that. And this is overarching science. So for the last 2,000 years, as the Earth wobbles, this is the Earth, this is the axis. As it wobbles like that, for 2,000 years, it points at one. The last age was Pisces. It was pointed at the group of stars that looks like fish or whatever the Pisces sign is. I barely know. This stuff is relatively new to me. The next age after that is Aquarius. That's the next physical grouping of stars that our Earth's axis will point to for a full 2,000 years. I encourage you guys to Google Age of Aquarius. There's tons of stuff out there about it. There's songs about it in the 60s because we're close to moving into that age. And the characteristics of that age are very different than the characteristics that permeate the energy of the Earth in the previous age. The previous age was a lot of attachment to external things, like your political party, like your social status, like your race, like your nationalism, all these different things. The next age, the energies that permeate it is more fluid, like water, so to speak. That's a pun there. But when you read some of these articles that tell you about how we were, and you see what's happening over the last 100 years, and especially over the last 10 years, you can see how those are decomposing. Those energies are changing, and they're more looking closer to like what the Aquarius age is described as. So even though I got into all that physical human stuff that we're dealing with, it's important that I wanted you to know this, that is not what shapes me. Like, I'm not overly into any of these causes specifically. My heart goes out on them. I'm empathetic to them. I feel them, and I see the civil unrest, and I see all the stuff, the crazy weather patterns, and I actually have connected yet another dot, meaning all these things also connect to something that controls our energy. Just like the moon controls the tides, the age we are in controls or dictates the kind of general paradigm of humanity that we're in. So we actually are headed to better times, regardless of who becomes president. So for those of you that are like super pro Biden, super pro Trump, whatever it is, don't let whoever gets voted in make you, it's going to be. We're not the result of whoever is in that office. Not in the least. We may think so, but more than ever in this period of time, all bets are off. That's why a lot of stuff is coming out. A lot of stuff is different than we've ever seen it before. So I hope that's some positivity. I don't mean to have you thinking that I'm like trying to be polarizing or divisive on these specific topics. I really am trying to connect us to the inner truth, which is connected to the God source, which don't care about all the things that we allow to divide us. And soon that source, whether you call it Jesus, whether it's Allah, whether it's just for those that are esoteric but not super religious, they call it's just source, Gaia, Mother Earth. Nature is about to balance this darkness, and we're feeling it, and it's taking us to a better place. So I hope we get more comfortable and in love with that aspect. Know what I mean?
Yes. Well, thank you so much. That was a very interesting conversation and gives me quite a bit to think about. And I'm sure that I will be hearing from some of my guests who stayed on a little longer. I'm sure they will be emailing me and giving me their perspective on the things that we were that you were talking about and that we kind of discussed. But I really appreciate your insight on everything, and I'll put your information in the comment section once we log off. And if anybody is interested in contacting you or getting more of your information, they can look you up. But hopefully, and then when Will comes back, we'll try to have you back on again so that he can meet you. And I'm sure that he has some questions and things too. So when he comes back, we'll have you on again.
Thank you for having me. By the way, I used to live in DC. I used to live in North Potomac or Gaithersburg, something like that, for like a year. So I know that very well.
Okay, cool. Well, all right. Well, thank you. Take care. And until next time.
All right. Oh, by the way, what is your name?
Shanika. I'm sorry, Shanika.
All I saw was Tanisha on the screen.
Co-host because Will is he took a personal day. So she was my special co-host today, but I'm Shanika. Yes.
All right, Shanika. Good. Great meeting you.
All right. Same here. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye. All right, all. That was very long. It was very intense. It was way longer than I expected, but I am very grateful that you all stuck it out. I am going to now get off. I want to thank Tanisha for sticking in there with us on this. And for everybody who stayed tuned and saw this all the way to the end, I really appreciate you sticking with us. Will is probably going to kill me when he finally looks at this and realizes that how much over I went, but it's okay. It's okay. The gentleman had much to say, and although, maybe this was, I don't know, but anyway, he said it, and I gave him the opportunity to say what it was he needed to say, and he needs to get his own podcast, because I think that he has a lot to say that he needs people to hear, and it'll be good for him. But anyway, thank you all so much. I am calling it a night, and I will see you all next Monday, same time, and will be back. Thank you again, Tanisha, for being here with me.
You're so welcome.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. And so until next Monday, y'all take care. Have a great week, and I will see you all then. Good night.